McCoy, I really appreciate you coming over to share your thoughts.
Thank you. Great to be with you today, and I will be brief. I'm proud to represent Indiana as a college president. At DePauw, like all colleges in Indiana, we do our utmost to create an environment that is welcoming and supportive. And the work we do in attracting, educating, and supporting our students is important and life-changing. These are the years that will shape their lives forever. It will shape not only their lives, but their opinions and perceptions of our state forever. And I'm proud to say that DePauw, like the world our graduates will inhabit, is a very diverse place. 32% of our current students come from multicultural backgrounds, and we've come a long way. In 1986, that number was 3%. 58% of our students come from out of state, and a full 10% are international students from around the globe. For many, if not all of them, the first night they spend in our residence hall at DePauw is their first night in Indiana. They come to learn and to grow and to prepare for lives of meaning and means. They also come with the assumption that they will enjoy their time in Indiana and at DePauw, and that we, together, will make their time here as productive, as happy, and as safe as we can. In a best-case scenario, they'll enjoy their experiences here so much that after graduation they will make Indiana their permanent home and contribute to our state's intellectual capital and our economy. But there's a barrier forming, one that I fear could cause some students to rethink Indiana as a place for their four-year experience in their life afterward. In April, a series of events on and around our campus left many of our students from marginalized groups feeling fearful, powerless, and hurt. The episodes, which include racial epithets left in public places, were reprehensible. I worked with our administration and with campus, city, and state, and even federal authorities to try to bring to justice and to support to the aggrieved. Yet I heard a message from many students that continues to echo. Does Indiana care? And that's a fair question to ask in 2018. The absence of a hate crimes bill in Indiana speaks much more loudly than any of us would like. Our state is an outlier, one of only a few that has not approved legislation that would make it very clear that we value all people, and that Indiana is great because it puts people, regardless of their race, color, creed, sexual orientation, or anything else, first. And I'll say it again. The absence of a hate crime bill in Indiana speaks much more loudly than you would like. The students we are admitting now come from Generation Z, or what we call Gen Z. Our admission office reports that increasingly these Gen Z students are asking questions about safety and security and about equity and inclusion. They want to know what our stand is and where our city and our state stand. Our university continues to take a strong stand against bias, hate, and intimidation. Our city has a hate crimes ordinance, but when they ask about our state, we have to say that at the moment our state does not have a hate crime law. Worse, we're one of only a handful of states that don't, and that's why I'm here today. The crucial question, does Indiana care, is not going away, and it extends beyond our students. Our faculty and our staff ask this same question. They wonder, why is Indiana one of the few states that does not have a hate crimes law? I recall a faculty meeting in which a young, brilliant, impeccably educated professor stood to speak. This young, brilliant, impeccably educated professor, also female and African American, had chosen to live in Greencastle, to be a part of the community in which she taught. Not that she would not enjoy a larger city with more amenities, but she did not want to commute to a job. She wanted to be a part of her community. And her words are burned into my brain. I don't feel safe, even in my own home. We have many families of colors that live in our communities. I would assume that they would say the very same thing. What does Indiana say to them when they refuse to pass a law that would provide a strong sense of safety and a solid commitment to it? I ask you today to send them and all citizens of the world who look upon Indiana a message. In Indiana, we care about people. We will do everything we can to make Indiana as welcoming as it can be, and we will classify hate crimes as something that will be called out, named, and punished. On behalf of DePauw, its 2,200 students, its 33,000 alumni, who include pioneering chemist Percy Levon Julian and attorney and civil rights leader Vernon Jordan, I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Senator Young?
Thanks for coming today.
Happy to be here.
Do you tell your students we already have the ability to sentence people for hate crimes?
I do.
And they don't understand that that has the same effect?
Well, some of the students that we have aren't on our campus yet. They're prospective students, and so they're just searching internet sites and they're just trying to gather information. We're often trying to clarify that.
Yeah.
So to them, the difference between a hate crimes law, it's just look on a website and see who has it. Who doesn't.
Yeah. So we should make laws just, even if we have one, we should just make a law.
Well, I think the question really to me is more fundamental than that. Do we want to be one of the 46 states that support this, or do we want to be one of the 5 that don't? And that's a real challenge.
Well, we're
because
actually
the
one of
perception-
47. We already have ours. We're one of 47. So would you rather have a law that is more difficult to prove, and maybe not, because I understand the conviction rates aren't very high, and try to convict somebody, which you said that your students want to make sure that people are tried and held accountable for, versus a law that we have that you just heard we don't have to have evidence for, but a judge can increase their sentence because of the act that they took?
Are those
So-
mutually exclusive?
What is mutual? The sentence? Yeah, you don't need, you just
No,
heard.
what I'm saying is, can we have both of those, or is you have to have one or the other?
But if we already have one, why do we need 2?
Well, I guess because the perception from the students that we talk to from around the world and from around the country bring this to us. And of course, I'm sure that happens in our case because we've had a particular incident that made a lot of news.
Yeah. Were those people found who did that?
In some cases, yes, and in some cases, no.
And were the people who were found, were they convicted of the crime?
Sadly, some of them were minors in the community.
Okay. And the ones that weren't, were they convicted of the crime?
The others were not found. So the others are still open.
So well, the other ones weren't found. So we don't know. And in this case, it probably wouldn't have made any difference. But if all we did was went into subsection C, and if we added bias-motivated crime, that takes care of the issue? If we just have the heading?
I think that as long as we can declare to our students, and our prospective students and families, that Indiana is committed to this in the same way and has the same thing that other states have, my concern is the perception. And believe me, Senator, I'm a pragmatist too, and I work in a world where you want to try to get the right thing done. And to the extent that we can say to these families that yes, we do, that we are not an outlier as Indiana, I think that's the key.
Why don't you say that now?
I do, but it takes a lot of words, and I don't get to answer it in every case because a lot of times they turn away just because of what they
Why don't
look
you
up.
put it on your website and put it on your literature? Indiana is one of 48 states that have hate crime or bias-motivated crime statute, which is subsection C in our sentencing guidelines.
I think the question, I'm not questioning the integrity or the commitment to anybody here. What I am suggesting is that the perception is other than the reality. And when we take that many words to explain, and we often don't have that many opportunities to explain, and they go looking other places, this is what they repeat.
How many words does it to say? One last question. How many words does it take to say Indiana already has this covered?
The simple
Indiana
question
already
is
has a bias.
yes or no, does Indiana have a hate crimes law?
Yes.
And I am forced to say no, we do not have a hate
Do.
crimes law.
That's the issue. We do.
Okay. We got one problem. He's at a 12 o'clock hard stop. So.
I'm happy to take a few questions. If
Okay,
that's
I'm
helpful.
going to leave it
I
up to you at that point. So when you got to go, you got to go. And
Thank
and,
you. I want to honor you.
All right. And so Senator Lannon and I know Representative Pierce, Representative Bartlett, do you have a question? Okay. So I know there's several stacks. So if we can go
Take the question.
kind of what do you call it, the hot fire zone? Or
So the real thank you, President, for being here. I appreciate it. And I just want to make sure I understand your testimony, though, because it seems to me that the issue is perception versus reality. And I think I'm hearing you testify very clearly that the perception is in the state of Indiana, we do not have a hate crime. And we are published as being one of 4 or 5 states without a hate crime. And do I understand your testimony to further be that as a president of an important institution of higher learning in the state of Indiana, you think that's having a detrimental effect upon our ability to recruit talent to the state, both academically and then also in economic development wise? Is that right?
That is my belief.
And so we can dance around this issue of do we or do we not have a hate crime, but the importance to the state of Indiana is to declare that the policy of this state is that we don't tolerate hate crimes in the state of Indiana. And is it your testimony that the best way to do that is to put a clear statement into our law that we do not allow and we will punish people who commit crimes based upon, motivated by bias against a person because of their race, color, and these other characteristics that we've talked about. I think that's an important statement. Thank you for being here and saying that.
Representative Pierce.
Yeah, Senator Lannon covered my point.
Nice job, Senator Lanham. Representative Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And pretty much Senator Landon covered my point. But one other statement I'd like to make is that the governor has called for a hate crimes bill as well, so he doesn't understand that we already have it in the law.
And I would submit, by the way, that I led an effort to have, I believe, 28 of our independent colleges in Indiana signed a letter of support of the governor's statement on that regard, because this is not something just felt on my campus, but I believe it felt on campuses across the state.
Well, I'll leave it. Do you have time?
Sure.
Mr. Professor, in the testimony earlier, you heard the testimony from our LSA person who drafts our bills. Are you familiar with the fact that before 2015 we had a law to protect police officers from people battering or even touching them? In other words, resisting law enforcement?
Am I aware of that?
Yeah, you aware we had that before then?
I am now. Yeah.
Are you aware that in 2015 we changed that law and we increased the penalty?
Yes.
Okay. So over time, what we do as legislators, which is our job, is we see things that happen in the community and we come back to this General Assembly and make public policy to address them. Some of us, including the person who was asking you questions, decided that since police officers were being attacked, that we would increase the penalty for touching a police officer, right? So we react sometimes to societal pressures. And so in your opinion, has society shifted to the point where we need something specifically delineated in the law to address the issues that we have in this state?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay. And I just want to make one statement, and I'm going to say this, and then I don't know if I can even come back for the rest of the meeting, but I listened to some of the questions and everything. Maybe it's easier for some of us on this committee to ask questions that are really nice and poignant and everything. But let me just tell you for something from a perspective of someone, and I just noticed this, other than Representative Bartlett, I might be the only person in here who fears innately the things that have been happening in this state. And I just want to say this, as a legislator who has experienced these types of biases, I was wondering why I was so upset all the time, and then now I get it. It's easy to ask good questions when you don't have to feel like it's going to happen to you. So please give me a little discretion, because not only has it happened to me, but it could also happen to me again. So give me a little discretion when it comes to this issue, just a little bit, so that's all I want to say.
If I could just state that categorically, in my time in Indiana now 8 years, the vast majority of people I know are wonderful, supportive citizens who would be shocked by any of these events. But these events do happen in our state and I think that they do.
Okay. And again, thank you for coming over, and I'm glad we were able to work you in.